The fact that so few people are taking the boosters
Yeah.
tells us that lots of people have updated something in their model, whether they've become agnostic about the whole thing and they're in their minds procrastinating and they just haven't gotten it yet, or whatever they're doing. Something is protecting them from getting further doses, even though they haven't stated, you know what, I used to think X and now I don't because.
And that's the thing we're waiting for, right? Like it's those sorts of admission makes it sound too onerous, right? But honesty, be honest with yourself, and then share that honesty at least with the people whom you shamed and debilitated. At least share your newfound honesty with those for whom your being wrong had a direct negative effect.
And you won't know till you do it. If it's not something that you're used to doing, you won't know till you do it. But you will feel so much better. Yeah. Right? It's not easy to say, hey, I really screwed this up. I thought I had it right, but it's really not easy to say. But you will just viscerally feel a huge weight off your shoulders in doing it. And by and large, the game theory says it's all about the future, always. It can never be about anything else. And so the point is, when you say to somebody, even if you've been terrible to somebody because you were absolutely sure that they had fallen down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, whatever that means, right? You may have been terrible to somebody. And if you say, look, I screwed it up. Here's how, but I understand that I did. I feel bad about it. I won't do it again. Right? If you say that to somebody, it is not in their interest to say, well, I don't accept your apology. There's nothing you can do to mend this. In general, especially if you have a relationship that has content that goes beyond whatever took place over COVID, people will forgive you. People will be decent to you, and you will just simply not have to live with that fear of, what happens if it emerges.
Well, so the idea of people will be decent to you. Those of us who have been, vilified, and we have been quite lucky. We haven't lost people or jobs, or been told to stand outside on Christmas and such, as many people have. Those of us on that side of the things are not the ones who aren't being decent, right? But one thing that I hear in what you're saying that I hope is true, but I'm not sure it is the kind of heartfelt, I looked inside of myself, I'm seeing the new evidence, and I behaved badly, and I was wrong. That hopefully can help rebuild trust. But one of the things that has frayed and decayed, and in some cases it's irreparable, is trust between people. And so, again, from conversations I had this last week, what I'm hearing from people who have not been apologized to, who have lost relationships, who have lost livelihoods, all of this. But one thing I'm hearing from them is, I don't know if I want the relationships back, because I won't ever trust them again. And it's not about like, I won't trust them because they hurt me, but specifically the thing that was said, and I heard this on more than one occasion, was I gave them what I knew about what the evidence was, and they still vaccinated their children. I don't trust them. I will never trust them with my children again. And like, what do you do? Well, I don't know what you do.
No, I'm afraid we all do, and it's built in. The real thing hinges on the distinction between a pro forma or hedging apology and a real one. And the reason that it hinges on that is not some touchy-feely thing. A real apology in which the person has done the accounting of their own wrongdoing is the insurance that makes them safe to deal with going forward. Perfectly safe? No. But none of us are perfectly safe. So there's a principle, right? At the point that a company has had a major scandal, what was it? I'm not going to mention the brand because I'm not 100% certain of it. I've forgotten. But there was a tire company that had covered up the fact that there were blowouts that had killed a number of people, right?
Yep.
The point is, in the aftermath of that scandal, there's actually a degree of safety in buying those tires. Because of all companies, that company cannot afford to have the pattern continue.
Yep.
And so you would expect extra vigilance. In fact, you would expect that that company might be willing to take a loss on each tire in order to ensure that it was clear that this pattern had gone away.
The extra scrutiny from the public because of past wrongs will make for extra vigilance on the part of the company.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is, and in my personal policy, which I have said before, is a complete accounting of what you did wrong, if it really is complete, is sufficient. Now, there are people here who I believe committed knowing wrongs, who can't apologize and never will, because to do so would be effectively to confess to crimes.
I think you're talking at a different level, though. This is funny, though, because having just spent time with that transcript from almost 10 months ago, I feel like we're having that conversation again at some level. And the issue is not so much did they see that it, like, even someone who says, oh, wow, oh, I see now, I shouldn't have had my children vaccinated with these vaccines, with these ones. I won't do that again. Even that leaves open the reality. Like, it doesn't change the reality that you were the sort of person, and the one I was talking, this one particular conversation, she invoked my Mama Bears piece on Substack. She said to me, you, my once dear friend, are the sort of person who gave up being a mama bear and trusted someone who'd already lied to you and let them have your children. I can't trust you with my children ever again if you do that. I don't care what kind of apology you make. I don't care if you know that you were wrong. The fact is, there's something in your head. There's something in your head that allowed you to sacrifice your children, and no apologies changes that.
Look, I get it. On the other hand, a full apology would involve the recognition, which is very hard to reach, that you put your own children in danger because you trusted something that you knew you should have known better than to trust, right? So the point is, if somebody said that to you, like, I can't believe that I allowed my children to be vaccinated in this way when, I was being told, hey, even if these vaccines work, the risk goes up the younger you are, and the risk of COVID is spectacularly low, right? If somebody says, hey, I now get that message was available to me at the time, and I allowed myself to be blinded, and it placed my kids in danger, right? If somebody said that, then the point is, how likely is it that somebody who has had to wrestle with the terrible knowledge that they put their own children in danger is going to blindly do that again? And if they did start to blindly do that again, and you said, hey, do you remember that time that you took this?
But I feel like you often say to me, no, their minds aren't like that, right? And I think, the 15 years that we spent really teaching college students, like actually really getting to know 25, 50, 75 students really well over the course of a quarter or two or a full academic year or more, gave us both the sense of, like, almost everyone's reachable, almost everyone's alive in there, and is waiting, if they haven't already discovered it, to be sparked into creativity and productivity and invention and discovery and exploration and so many interesting things. It was the very rare student, even at this really non-elite college, who couldn't be inspired into doing some interesting work. And yet we see at, like, the population level, where we don't know any of these people. We don't have access to them and their individual minds on, a daily basis for weeks on end or months or even years. That people are making decisions not based on, but why do you think that? Okay, tell me, let me give you why you shouldn't be thinking that way, or why you think I shouldn't be thinking this way. Without access to them at that level, it looks like it's not a model. It's just a conclusion.
No. Look, I think you're mixing two things. A, I disagree with you that almost everybody is reachable. I think almost everybody starts out reachable. But
in college classrooms, people were young enough that it felt like...
A, they were young enough. B, because your and my classes were so oversubscribed, and they tended to be oversubscribed because students who had gotten a lot out of it told other students who would get a lot out of it.
So the college wasn't selective, but our classes were.
Our classes were selective.
Okay.
And, I do believe we are all born in a condition where we can, unless you're broken, you can be reached early, but then you lose that capacity. But
there's not a boundary, but it's a slope.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my point is not, hey, everybody who did wrong here can apologize and we can be back to zero. My point is the people who are capable of delivering the necessary apology can be made safe, because the whole point is it's the self-accounting that allows you to deliver an apology that doesn't have any, gray areas or, places to hide some kind of self-deception. The full accounting that says, here's how I got it this wrong, is itself a demonstration that the person has updated their model. Either that, or they have to be diabolical and willing to say this and not believe it and not care, which is very few people.
I guess I think there's a third category, and I'm not sure. I hope I'm wrong, but as I heard it, you just described an apology that involves a description of the ways that a person was wrong. Inherently is either accompanies an update in the reliability of their decision making in the future, or they're diabolical, and they are reporting something that doesn't correspond to a change in the way that they're going to behave in the future. I think, unfortunately, that there are a whole lot of people who, in order to, I just want this relationship back. Oh, can we just do family holidays again? Okay, you know what? I thought about it. I saw you were wrong. I mean, I fear that that's what people are actually thinking. But I thought about it. I see that we were lied to, and that I made the wrong decision. And here is why. But here's why I won't do it again. And yeah, I'm making a caricature of it. I'm kind of rolling my eyes. But I feel like there's people who can deliver an apparently good apology who will be internally kind of this is pro forma, but I gotta get through it because I really like this person. Oh, yeah. I really like my sister. I really like my cousin. I really like my friend from high school. It's my work buddy. It's my boss. I gotta just do it. And okay, are we good? I'm really sorry. Okay, good. Let's go have a beer. And I feel like there's a lot of those people. Yeah. And I'm worried about them because I feel like they're obviously, from the past 3 years, hiding in plain sight.
Well, I am not arguing that somebody who delivers an apology necessarily deserves a cleaning of the slate. My point is a proper apology that involves a self-accounting that did not do the following thing. The accounting you are afraid of, and I also agree, it is there to be feared, is the accounting that says, what is the minimum I have to acknowledge in order to get past this, right? The grudging apology, the minimal apology, that thing is strategic. And it is functioning to preserve the capacity to do similar things in the future. I want no part of
even if none of that is conscious.
Right. Whatever mechanism it is that says, I want to get past this. And you can hear people who are actually good at apologizing, you will hear they are not monitoring whether this is enough for you to let them off the hook. What they are trying to do is tell you their own argument with themselves. Here, I'm angry at myself. Here's what for. Here's what it looks like inside. And I'm just going to talk. I'm going to let you see that. And then you're going to decide if that covers what you saw, right? And you may say, actually, it doesn't. I hear what you're doing there. You have found this 7 things that you did wrong, but you've missed these other 2.
Yeah, think on it some more and then come back to me.
Right.
Yeah, and hopefully we've all been there on both sides. If we're adults past, the age of, I don't even know what, but, we presumably all of us have done wrong unto others and had wrongs done unto us that warranted complex apologies. And sometimes the difficult conversation that happens does involve exactly what you just said. Yeah, you've got some of it, but you don't have all of it, and that's not enough.
And
go back, think more. Come back to me after you have.
And if they do, right? Then what you have is somebody who is now hyper-conscious of this hazard that exists in them. That's the point, is that if you do this properly, then you end up conscious of things that most people are not fully conscious of. And so if you...
But how often does this even happen? Like, you and I do this with each other. We do.
Yep.
And I think the audience, if you're watching, part of what you're watching for is because you can tell that we do.
Yep.
That we are actually honest with one another. And it's not that we're always perfect with one another at all, but we have both been on both sides of that.
Yep.
Okay? With each other. Have I been with other people? I don't know. So we are lucky to have in our lives each other with whom we can do that with and with whom we do. I don't know that most people have someone with whom they can do that it wouldn't just tear apart the fabric of the thing and it disappears into the wind.
Yeah, I mean, this goes to a different conversation that we've had multiple times here, which is...
Not so much here, this being the permanent studio.
We have never had this conversation here, because this is the first conversation we've had here. But in the past on DarkHorse, we have talked about the painful upgrade to one's friend group that occurs in crisis because people disappoint you and they're actually telling you something that you need to know. They're not up to the challenge of being, they can be a friend under simple conditions, but if a friend who cannot be a friend under difficult conditions isn't really a friend. And so you lose those people and you got to not do everything to get them back, because if they're not capable of at least apologizing for what they actually did wrong, then it's not really it's not something to invest in. But the other thing is that people surprise you in the other direction, and you encounter these folks who you didn't know before who are up to that challenge. And so I'm not telling you that the world is going to be full of people who are capable of delivering a high quality apology and deserve the forgiveness that comes from it. But I'm telling you that that's the thing you're on the lookout for. And to the extent that you encounter people who do that, I think it makes total sense to put them in a very different category than you would put somebody who has not made eye contact with where they've been.
Yeah, but yes, I agree with you. No but, I guess. No, a but, which is that one of the things I saw this week, one of the reasons I started thinking about certainty was I see no holes, I see no tatters in the shield of certainty that the people who have accepted pronouncements from on high since the beginning of this thing have. If anything, they're more entrenched than ever.
Well,
and they're more self-satisfied than ever, and they're more eager to laugh at those of us who don't agree with them than ever. So, yeah, I want those people with the real soul searching and the real apologies to start coming forward. But it's like the entire world is now politics.
No, I mean, everything is politicized by some force.
Yeah.
But it doesn't own everyone. And, you said something in your setup here about the tendency, if you were to look at the group of people who's certain in one direction versus people who's certain in the other direction, it was an evolutionary process in one direction and absolutely not in the other. And this, I think, is key, right? The fact, if you haven't spent time, if you haven't decamped from your position and seen the other side, then you don't really know how deeply you believe it. And in fact, who is it, Hume, who formalizes this principle?
Maybe.
He who cannot articulate the other's position knows little of his own, or something like this.
That sounds potentially Humey. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely humorous, but not really that humorous.
No.
But anyway, the point is, when you have an asymmetry like this, where one side gains people over time, right? You've got two sides that are claiming something is in evidence.
That's another prediction then, right there, right? So I said the level of certainty has changed on one side and not on the other. And the second prediction here that you are making is one of the sides is gaining people, and the other side, the prediction is going to be losing them.
Yep. So,
and we know they are. Because people have actually gotten vaccine injured, for instance.
How many people do you know who started out thinking these so-called vaccines were dangerous and now think they're safe?
Right. That's that first. Yeah. Like it doesn't.
It's not a known category for a reason, and it's because the evidence is.
I mean, there were people like the doctor I referred to who was like, why, don't do this. Like you got to wait a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm now going to take it. Okay.
Well, but then that goes to the point that you and I were disagreeing on, which is the difference between safety and harm.
Yep,
right?
That's right.
And so I would, let me use a different analogy than I've used in the past. Is it safe to get in your car drunk and drive home? No. Does that mean you're going to crash?
Right.
Nope. You could get home absolutely unscathed, right? So the point is harm and safety are two different things. We understand the difference very easily.
Yeah.
And
no, and you're right that it's important. Like to say that you weren't harmed doesn't mean that it was safe. Like this and I feel like that's a formulation that I immediately grok, and that I think almost everyone would too.
Yep.
You can say just because I wasn't harmed doesn't mean it was a safe thing to do. Whereas looking at it on the prospective side is harder to distinguish between the two.
Right. Well, people, this is the problem of the bluntness of language that comes from us all using a shared glossary that we, some of us use things very precisely. We're very technical about it, and we mean only what it is that we intend to imbue into those words, and other people just sort of hear it loosely. And so the idea of, is that pharmaceutical safe, right? Well, if you talk to me, you're talking to somebody who's spent an awful lot of time thinking about how pharmaceuticals might be unsafe on the basis that we have test animals that don't tell you what it is that test animals are supposed to tell you, right? So you're getting a technical response rather than a, safety, harm, what's the difference?